If the company you're building and growing isn't built around a legitimate human need, you're a margin seeker and you're doomed to fail. People want to make a difference. I was interviewing some staff at another senior center nearby. It was just entry-level staff, and I was really struck by what they said. It was somebody in housekeeping and somebody in food service. They didn't know who I was or why I was there. They just knew I was a guest. And I said, do you like working here? They both said the same thing. I love working here. You could never pull me away. Like that, you couldn't possibly recruit them away because one, they're making a difference doing what they're good at, and two, their values. That's the culture. And everybody can build that culture. You just have to understand what's your unique ability as a company? What problem are you solving for? You want to do good business? Would you like to run a successful business? Then find a need in the culture and meet it. That's how you do good business. Find a need that human beings have. And the more universal the need, the stronger the need for business.
Welcome to the 80-20 Recruit Podcast, hiring, building, retaining top talent. This show is dedicated to helping business leaders, recruiters, and HR professionals master the art of hiring and managing real estate and investing companies. I'm your host, Francisco Israel, and you can find me anywhere on LinkedIn. Our podcast is proudly sponsored by 80-20 Recruit, where we help real estate companies like investors, flippers, and wholesalers recruit high-performing real estate candidates 100% guaranteed without markup fees or recurring fees. Today's guest is Greg Robeson. He's the Chief Investment Officer for Harmony Homes, and he leads capital strategy and investor relations to fund the development of high-quality assisted living homes for seniors. He bridges mission and margin, aligning compassionate care with strong, sustainable returns for value-driven investors. Greg, welcome to the 80-20 Recruit Podcast.
Thank you, Francisco. It's good to be here, brother.
Awesome. So I'm looking forward to knowing about your experience. And maybe we can start in just tell me in your words a little bit about what you think is changing or is a big trend regarding recruiting and hiring teams in real estate.
Sure. I think the big trend is that people want to make a difference. I was interviewing some staff at another senior center nearby. It was just entry-level staff, and I was really struck by what they said. It was somebody in housekeeping and somebody in food service. And they didn't know who I was or why I was there. They just knew I was a guest. And I said, do you like working here? And in a nutshell, just real quick, they both said the same thing. I'll put it in my own words. They said, I love working here. You could never pull me away. And one of them told a story about a sick kid that she had children and had a sick kid one day and had to call in. And the CEO, she feels that company has their back. Like that you couldn't possibly recruit them away because one, they're making a difference doing what they're good at, and two, they're valued. And that's the key right there. It's just in a nutshell. You want to hire people, you want to onboard, you want to keep, like everybody needs to keep, right? We can't be spinning our wheels constantly in an HR onboarding exit interview nightmare. We can't do that. You can't be busy doing that with a company. So you got to get it right the first time. It costs too much money and time. So this is the trend. This is what I see around the country. People want better onboarding metrics. They want tools. They want assistance, or they want to put the right people in place to get the right people the first time and build a culture. No matter what you're doing, no matter what your business is, you want to build a culture of difference makers. Because if you're the CIO or whatever your role is, you're probably not the outward face. You're not the public facing image. You might be in marketing or commercials or whatever. That's me. I'm on the front lines, like doing podcasts, but it's the people who do housekeeping or whatever, Mm-hmm. I own an Airbnb. My guest is more likely at an Airbnb to interface my handyman or my cleaner, right? In that mm-hmm. scenario, not me, and so guess what? I've got to have a handyman and a cleaner who is a difference maker, who loves doing laundry or loves fixing air conditioners, and because that's it. And so that's the key, is finding those, recruiting and screening for those difference makers. That everybody wants this. Everybody wants to build a team where the culture represents the mission. That's what I see. That's what the pressure is.
Awesome. And I really want to double, triple click there. So don't don't miss that thought. I want to give the listeners a little bit more context on what is it you and your company do. And I see that in your LinkedIn, you are not only chief investment officer, you also, correct me if I'm wrong, you also hold another business as Source Summit Homes owner. Can you tell us a little bit about both?
Sure, no problem. That's just a short-term, and the STR market. So that's where I own my Airbnbs and single-family homes. And
okay,
in a nutshell, my company works at the bank for. It's an LP position, but most of the time, I have Airbnb. I have some vacation rentals too, but for the most part, my heart is in letting my company serve as the bank for people who can't get lending. For whatever reason. There's a lot of legit reasons. They have great debt to income, on-time pays, but they can't because they had a blip. Grandma had to have heart surgery or whatever, and they had to foreclose, and now there's no bank going to lend to them, but they still need a home. There's a lot of people rolling around out there. They can't qualify for lending, but they need a home. They've got a family. Well, my company comes in, steps in, serves basically kind of as the bank. You leave the mortgage in place, and you do. So I buy homes, and I sell to families where banks won't lend, and I have that infrastructure in place. So that's Source and Summit, and that's the playground where I broke into the real estate market before I got into this role as CIO for Harmony Homes, building senior living.
Got it. Beautiful. So, and what about a little bit more context on Harmony?
Sure. So I rallied my family. I've got 5 kiddos and my wife. 7 of us hit the road, and we lived in an RV for 4 years, and we traveled North America. And at the time, I was in the STR market, and while we wanted to road school our kids and teach them by full cultural immersion, that was definitely a front burner goal. It was very much family focused. My back burner goal was to study the real estate market nationally. And at the time, since we were living in an RV, I was studying RV parks, RV resorts. I was interviewing every place we stayed. We stayed in the top RV resorts in the country. And so while we're living in the resort, I would set up a meeting with the owner to look at margins, and to hear the story. Tell me, how'd you get into RV parks and all that? So anyway, I did that enough times, and I'm a faithful man. My faith is the center of my business. We do business as ministry. We call it BAM. That's a cool term. Business is ministry. BAM. That's what we do. But God led me to away from RV park ownership. I never entered that vertical, and I was doing an ROI analysis, and I learned that senior cares. If you want margins per door, senior care is where it's at. If you do a 10-year study, there's no other asset class that's going to outperform senior care, quite simply. And so I came back after 4 years of travel. We planted back in our hometown of St. Louis, where we had launched from. And I immediately was introduced by Providence, God is good, to some partners who were seeking to build team around this. And that's how I became CIO and partner. So we brought some cash and talent to the table, built a team, and now we're a couple years in, and we're on site number 4, building a land acquisition and building assisted living in a new and unique way. Frankly, we're first to market. There's nobody in the country doing what we're doing. So I feel very privileged and honored to be given this responsibility.
I have to ask, what is it that is so different that you guys are doing that's no one else is doing?
Yeah, sure. So 2 things are distinct about Harmony Homes and the way that we're building. One is it's residential assisted living. Most people think nursing home or senior care, and they think 100 beds in a building, 4 floors tall, and wait in your room until I come bring you your meds. And they smell a certain way and they feel a certain way. And that's not senior care. We're talking about our parents and our grandparents. That's unacceptable to us. So we're building 16-bedroom ranches right now. So we just bought some land, site number 4. We're going to build 6 of these on this plot. We've got 3 others in other parts of the state, but each ranch, it's a home. You walk in, it doesn't feel like a hotel. It doesn't feel like a business. It feels like a home. They're built in the round. 16 bedrooms around the perimeter. So you have a window and you walk out of your bedroom and you're 12 feet from the living room. You're 16 feet from the kitchen. You don't need somebody else to wheel you to the elevator. It feels like home. And if there's only 16 residents, it's a family of families. So that's really residential assisted living. Anybody interested in that, I recommend the RAL Academy. You can look that up. Is much different than what most people think of in the testimony that you hear about senior living. Every testimony I've heard in the country from someone who has a relative or knows someone in senior care, it's the same. It's the same. This is what it sounds like. We pay X dollars, and I am mad about it. I cannot believe we pay that much for that little care. I almost never hear a testimony in any of the 50 states that sounds different than that. And this is upsetting to me. And this is what motivates what we're doing. So that's one thing is bringing care, taking care of those who took care of us. It's one of our taglines. The second thing, the second way that we're unique is in the way we hire. the mission that we have. We're one hand to hold. So, and there's other people doing residential assisted living, but there's no one who is building the verticals around the need. You want to do good business? Would you like to run a successful business? Then find a need in the culture and meet it. That's how you do good business. Find a need that human beings have. And the more universal the need, the stronger the need for business. I loved Peter Thiel's book, Zero to One. Don't be a competitor. Don't look around and see what everybody else is doing and try to do it better. Meet a need in a way that no one's doing. Pull an Apple, go into computers. Right? That's it. Yeah, be the only one. Be an innovator. And how do you innovate in business? You meet authentic human needs. You go deep. You find out what the needs are and you meet all of them. So our model is meeting the needs of seniors in transition. Look at the silver tsunami and the way we're aging. You want an ROI analysis? Just look at that. Just look at numbers of how many folks over a certain age. Just look at that in the United States. Look at how old is everybody going to be in 10 years? And where's the care coming from? By the year 2030, we're 770,000 beds short. Let that set in. By 2030, we're 770,000 beds short for senior care. And that says nothing to do with care. That's just the buildings. That's just the homes. So anyway, back to the uniqueness of the model. How do we intuit the care? This is how we do it. Seniors need three things when they're in transition. I don't need this home anymore. This house that I grew up in, I love it, but it don't work for me no more. Number two, I got a bunch of stuff in this house that I don't need. Look at all these coffee cups. Look at this china. My grandkids don't want this china. So forth and so on. What am I going to do with all of my stuff? And the third is, I don't understand what my needs are. I don't know how to handle what we call placement. I don't know, am I losing my memory? Decreased mobility? I don't understand. I need someone to help me understand what I should pay for in terms of care. Well, we built companies around all three of those needs. There's no one doing that out there. So, and I would welcome the competition because the need is so dramatic. We're under such tremendous pressure to export this model, and we can't grow fast enough. So we own a franchise called Caring Transitions. What is it? It's estate liquidation for seniors. It's helping seniors sell all the stuff that's not in the will quickly, easily, without an estate sale, no strangers. It's like auction, gone, convenience. Number two, we own a franchise called Trusted Transitions. And what we're doing there is we're sitting down with seniors and looking at their portfolio and looking at their biggest assets. And we're all real estate professionals. So we counsel and we help seniors with generally four options. Look, here's what your home's worth. Here's the note you have or whatever. This is our suggestion about how to pull out the greatest value from your home to pay for your care. Because you in the next 3 to 5 years, here's the budget you're going to need. You don't have a long-term care rider. Most seniors don't. And so how are you going to pay for that? They need a real estate and financial expert to step into that space and help them understand the value of their boathouse, their house, their whatever those assets are, liquidate them if needed, and then drive that to pay for care. So we are able to do that. And now we're also building the buildings, and that's called Harmony Homes. So we're building residential assisted living. So we have a company to deal with stuff, a company to help with the asset, to pay for the care, and we have physicians and nurses to help assess their care and make a suggestion about where to place them. So that's how we're unique. There's just simply nobody in the space that's doing all those things.
I love it, man. And my entrepreneurial soul wants to triple click on the business, and I'll, I think I'll do that maybe later or offline. But I really need to talk a little bit about HR here. And we froze, we froze the thought a few minutes before where you told us that you hire a lot for purpose. And let me know a little bit how you do that. How do you call your talent for purpose? How do you call out to that?
Yeah, you bet. So my background is pastoral. I come from a nonprofit sector. I built youth programs for kids. I've done young adult training, mentoring, led retreats for faculties, schools. So I've done a lot of person development, which helps. I did some recruiting for some nonprofits, some hiring, reading stacks of resumes, interviewing people to match them up. So I have some experience in the sector, but most of it is just a unique ability to understand people. So it's matching up. What do we need to do? What service are we trying to provide? And what are you good at? That's what we're doing. Now, caveat, we did purchase a subscription to something called Predictive Index. I do recommend it. I don't have any stake in it. I'm not a stakeholder.
We totally use it big time.
Okay, you do. So you know. So what we're talking about with PI is double-blind analysis. Instead of, because, if you interview somebody, they can lie. If you look at a resume, people can embellish. And you have to develop the craft of reading through those things. Well, PI tool on HR, on onboarding, it's a double blind. And so there's no test bias. That's key, right? So it's a company that comes alongside startups or people who are growing their team to aid them in what are we doing? What's PI doing? It's aligning the things that drive people, the fire in their belly. Like, you should be in housekeeping because you're happy all day making beds. Like, we want to build a job, you know what I mean? That's what PI does. What is the fire in the belly? And then what does the company need? Because if you can line up what the company needs with the fire in the belly of the applicant, and what we're doing, what's unique with a new company, we have a little more leeway, right? Is we're literally building the positions around the unique ability of the people. That is wildly successful. If you can literally craft the position around why someone's passionate, what they're passionate about, you think they're ever going to leave you? I said at the beginning of this interview, it doesn't matter what level of employment if they feel like they have a competitive salary and they're making a difference in the world, like they can visibly see how their skill is an impactor, no one could steal them away. You could have yourself an employee till retirement there, possibly. Anyway, so that's one, is PI. And then the other for me, because once you have test results, you still have to be able to work with people. You still got to be able to onboard people, and all our partners are good at this. It's onboarding, training for mission. So once you've got someone's unique ability, it's integrating them into the difference making. Everybody needs coaching. So I've got to be a good coach, a mentor. I've got to be a good mentor, which means vulnerability, humility, admitting when I'm wrong, and approaching with questions and listening. And then our employees need to be coachable, trainable, formable to the mission, which I've already mentioned. For us is one hand to hold and taking care of those who took care of us. So we're integrating people with unique abilities, using that fire in the belly, we're integrating them into a mission. That's pretty special. Like, everybody wants to make a difference. This is innate. So when you take a prospective employee and applicant and you integrate them into something that you could, just like speaking on this, you're already that entrepreneur in you is like, how do I triple click? You can do this with employees too. You integrate them into something that feels like holy ground. It's like, whoa, I get the mission. You're right. Seniors have been we haven't been taking care of our patrimony for a decade. This is not okay, the employees will say, and now they see how what they do is a key in the cog of solving a corporate, systemic national crisis. So now what do we have? We have someone changing linens who's solving a national crisis. See, that's called mission integration. That builds a culture. That's margins. What's that?
Plus margins, right?
Yeah. So
Easy.
now what's that employment look like? What's that place of work? So I'll run a 16-bedroom home, a bunch of them, but somebody walks into our home, who's the face? The face is a linen chainer, a cook, a receptionist, whatever, who feels like they're solving a national crisis, and they're excited to be there. That's the face. That's the culture, and everybody can build that culture. You just have to understand what's your unique ability as a company. What problem are you solving for? If your business isn't built around a unique ability, if the company you're building and growing isn't built around a legitimate human need, you're a margin seeker and you're doomed to fail. We've got enough of those. Nobody, I mean, think about it. When you need your grass cut, who do you want to cut? Pick a service. You seek and keep difference makers. You keep people who are mission driven. It doesn't matter what the thing is. You know, if my mechanic is in it for the money and doesn't value me as a customer or love cars or want my car to run as long as possible because his work is his signature, I'm not going to book that mechanic again. Think about it. Anything you do, you want people who are difference makers. Now, why would we run a company any different than that? You see what I'm saying? It's the culture, you know, that so people walk into a 16-bedroom ranch in Harmony Homes, it's a different culture.
All right. So good things to do here to wrap up a little bit on this whole chapter. Mission oriented and really pass that on. What about, so that's a big do. What's a big don't? Or what are people making in terms of mistakes these days, especially maybe within real estate? What do you see a lot of people making mistakes regarding hiring?
So when you say hiring, do you mean hiring team to build around your real estate business that you're growing, no matter what your vertical is? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, actually, you could take off the hiring, but if it's very specific, if the positions that you're looking for are very specific, then yes,
Okay, gotcha. I understand what you're saying. To me, the key would be prioritizing resumes over resilience. So why does it matter? The skills can be trained. You know, like, so if you're hiring based on the resume because they've got X, Y, and Z skill, but they don't have integrity, you're in trouble. You see what I mean? So skills can be trained, but things like integrity and humility, emotional maturity, those can't be trained. That's the number one.
How do you look for those? How do you make sure of those?
You screen for teachability. You screen for self-awareness. You screen for alignment with the mission, even more than credentials. It has to be your front burner. That's got to be your front burner. So you want to have the onboarding strategy of whatever skills I need for this position, I can teach you. But whether it's PI or my interview technique, I'm screening for character, because you can't teach that. You can't. If people are going to call in sick and lie, you're going to have to fire that person eventually. You could have caught that in the onboarding. You see what I'm saying? If you can build your HR, if you can build the way you build the company to screen for character, you save time and money.
Absolutely.
Another mistake would be stuffing someone into a box of ability, a role that doesn't tap their God-given ability. You know, misalignment, in other words. You've got to be able to pivot. So you might have a role. This is a big mistake. You might have a role. You're trying to pigeonhole somebody, and there's misalignment. In other words, they would be great if you just changed the job description a little bit. You've got this other need. Is there a way to pivot to avoid things like mediocrity and burnout and high turnover? So you start with strengths. You build the role around what that person does best naturally and consistently, and you avoid that mistake. Another mistake would be letting charisma or competence blind you to red flags. So someone that interviews well, looks good on paper. What's a red flag? Blame shifting. So if you have a person who shifts blame rather than the skill of taking personal responsibility, big trouble. Entitlement, you can screen for that. Because what are you going to have when it comes to a 30 or 60 or 90-day review? The posture at the review is, you owe me. This is not a good employee, no matter what they're responsible. You got to screen for entitlement or vagueness around past conflict. You might not be able to do your due diligence to find out why they were fired, but you can certainly talk about why they left the last job. And when there's vagueness around why they left, that's a red flag for character. You see what I'm saying? Do these things make sense?
Totally.
It's like poison in the water. Poison.
I want to go a few months down the road once you've hired someone, all right? What strategies do you have as a company to retain talent and also to give feedback to your talented positions?
Yeah, so we do 30, 60, 90-day reviews, and these are understood up front. And so you got to have an effective job description, the expectations. In 30 days, we're going to meet. And these are the metrics we're going to use to evaluate your performance. If you have a bonus structure or compensation structure, it's all clearly marked out. Then your 30 and 60 and 90-day reviews are check-ins, or it's not a corrective, like a condescending. There's a partnership. Remember, we're on mission together. How are we doing with these goals? So this is dignified, and it sets up a relationship with whoever's job it is to oversee that person as equals in dignity, but just with different roles. So it's the structure around the evaluation and compensation methodology that is going to increase retention and change the culture. So it's not just the onboarding. How are you going to cultivate, mentor, and raise up? Everybody can move to A to B. I mean, can you think of a time when you had a job, you're really glad you had that position because of what you learned and the kind of person that you became because you had those responsibilities? I know I feel that way as CIO. Like, I'm becoming something more than I was before I took on this job. The sacrifices that I'm making, the type of commitment, the type of person I'm becoming, I'm grateful for the work that I'm doing. And that's what that's the disposition, that's the environment that you want to build. It's like ongoing feedback. You want to build a system of ongoing feedback. So it may be such that a 30, 60, 90 is insufficient. Maybe weekly, bi-weekly. There's all kinds of, you could Google this and come up with your own stuff, like your suggestion boxes and ways for feedback or whatever. But where those under you can feel like they're talking about what's going well, where they're stuck, and where they need support. Because just think any relationship, a family member, a business, employees. When we're not talking about what's going well, our enthusiasm quells, right? When we don't have a way to discuss what's going poorly and where we feel stuck, what does it do? It breeds frustration. Now I have negative feelings about my job. And when I can't tell you, if you're my boss, Francisco, if I can't tell you, I need more help. And sometimes I don't know. If you've hired me, I don't know how. You can, as my boss, you can give me a way to show you that I need more support. That's a job saver. That's a culture changer. I feel like I have a way, even though I don't have the perfect words, I have a way to let Francisco know, hey, I'm struggling. Boy, that's a difference maker.
Great. Greg, by the way, you've told us a lot about hiring, a lot about industry, a lot about mission, a lot about culture. So there's a lot of things we've learned, and other people, other professionals that listen to this podcast, also they want to see what challenges, because these are the good things of the interviewee, meaning you. So what about, I don't want to say the bad things, but let's talk a little bit about the challenges. So what do you think is the biggest challenge that you maybe as a company face in terms of growing / managing your employees, your talents?
Well, it would be these things I have just spelled out to you come from making mistakes. So is missing one of these steps. One of our growing challenges right now is the pressure to scale quickly. And this is a perennial challenge for any company. You hear people talk about growing too fast. So we've got 10Xers approaching us right now, and we're trying to set the pace. We made a mistake in a neighborhood where we were building, and we underestimated the NIMBYs. NIMBY means not in my backyard. Don't bring your business looks good, but don't bring it here. And we skipped critical steps, and we learned something about city governance and working with neighbors. And so the next municipality we applied for a special use permit, we approached that differently. So like any business, you don't know what you don't know. And so the more that we can, depending on our sector, the more we can network with people who are a step or two ahead of us, the better off we're going to be, because we're blind. How do you seek objectivity? Pick your weakness. I'm married. I have a wonderful holy wife, and she's able to look at me and say, "Hey, bro, this is something you're not addressing." And we need to build those kind of cultures corporately too, where we're able to get feedback. So, so scaling culture without dilution is key. Onboarding people under the pressure of growth, but you don't want to dilute the mission. That's one of the areas where we have learned. Finding talent who can carry both competence and calling, both. So we hired someone who was going to be in charge of one of our age-in-place divisions. So we go into seniors' homes, and when they don't want to move, but they just need a new bathroom, a new entrance, and maybe a ramp for a lift chair, we were hiring a company that is going to handle the contracting at the real estate level, that run-out. And we lost sight of the mission. We treated that hire as again, that I already mentioned this in the tricks and tips, if you will, as the most important thing was their ability to be kind to seniors and be professional in the renovation of the home. And that's not the most important thing. It's the integration with the mission that's the most important thing. So it was, live and learn. So all these tips and tricks that I just kind of went through, they all came from doing it wrong. Does that make sense?
Totally, man. Totally. So how many years have you personally been doing all this?
Me, real estate since 2012. So that's where I broke into the short-term rental market. And then Harmony Homes, 2 years. So that's when 2.5 years ago, we came off the road and switched from that ambition to do RV park vertical and switched into senior living.
That's great, man. So Greg, you've taught a lot. I'm sure that your experience is going to be very valuable to other professionals in real estate or not regarding recruiting and building teams. So we're wrapping up by now. I want to ask you one last question. I want to ask you to tell us a little bit about what's your message to the world and how people can connect with you if they want to.
Sure. So my email is greg@livewithharmony.com. Love to connect with if there's anything I've said that touches a point and you're like, hey, that's clearly a to be continued message. Email me, reach out. I'm always looking to serve. I just got off a call right before this podcast. My approach to anybody, no matter what you're doing, is how does my unique ability help you to grow what you're doing? So that's number one. You can check out our website, livewithharmony.com, and kind of see the scope of what we're doing in senior living. But my message would be the greatest lesson I've learned is no matter where you have come from, when you are growing a company, if this is something that God wants, you're in school. We need to stay attuned. So I'm a capital raiser. So I'm raising money for this build, building a fund, building a structure around that. Well, I can't just stay attuned to people that I like the way I used to do business. You can run small business with people you like. I have to learn to stay attuned to people within the whole capital. I have a lot to learn. Mm-hmm. I always feel that way. So I'm a student of life. Are you? That would be my recommendation is whatever responsibility you've been given, whatever mission you're on, you're a student. And always ask yourself, it's not about preferences in life. what are other people's unique ability, even if you don't care for their personality or their character or whatever. How can you learn from them? What do they do better than you? They probably do something better than you and maybe better than anybody else. How can you come under them? How can you be coachable? It's a new way of networking. It's a new way of relationship and approaching people. Because if we're going to build the greatest difference-making business that we can, if we're going to build culture-changing, high-returning, impact-driven companies, then we've got to be a student of life. And everybody we're in relationship with brings something to the table. That takes humility. I come under my kids. I have 5 children. They coach me. I'm the leader of my family, but I come under my wife and the way that she brings wisdom, femininity, and insight to our marriage.
We all do.
All the other partners. What's that?
We all do come after our wives and kids, but yeah.
Yeah. And then my partners. Look at there's 5 partners building Harmony. We all have unique abilities, and I come under like my CPA, my CIO. That's not my long suit, but I love being in the partner meeting with him and learning and coming under that. So there's this docility. You want to do great things? You want to build a great company? Come under the excellence and the mentorship and the unique abilities of every person that you're in. Look for the godly, look for the amazing, look for the culture changing in the other, and be a student of life so that your business can be what it's meant to be.
Love it, Greg. So with that words, I think that's really a wrap for today's episode. Huge thanks again to Greg Robeson. You can learn more about his work and you can find him in LinkedIn searching for Greg Robeson. So once again, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and leave a review. And if you're a real estate leader and want to be featured, please apply to be a guest on 8020recruit.com/podcast. And of course, consider 8020recruit.com as your go-to partner for all things recruiting in our industry. Until the next time, and keep building strong teams and hiring smarter. Thank you.